One of the more interesting areas to look at is that of academic capitalism, or as it's sometimes called neoliberalism, which really is the influences of forces traditionally external to the university on the shape of education, the shape of who studies, the curriculum.
What gets studied?
And yeah, exactly, what gets studied. And, we see examples of this significantly in other countries under the influence of the Organization for Economic and Community Development, under the influence of the World Bank. And we see overreactions to market forces here in the United States. Perhaps the attempt by the University of Virginia to get rid of its president, Terry Sullivan, is one example of academic capitalism.
It's very important. It's had a huge impact, for example, on this university and the way that we have to offer student services, for example, to accommodate all different cultures and different needs. But I think we also want to think about it in the larger context. What does it mean for students to pick one particular country over another? And how does that impact their long-term trajectory in their career? And then also, how does that impact the way particular countries develop science, for example, engineering, over time with these outside influences coming in? We also need to think about, too, the countries that send or lose students through this process. It's scenarios of brain drain happen, and certain countries end up attracting the best talent and the best students.
And I think one of the things that Professor Witt is pointing to are the propagation or continuation of the differences between first and third world. And I think as a university, we have to be sensitive to the whole, which is, the context in which we operate, which brings us back to the beginning reasons for looking at global studies. Well, one of the more difficult pieces in engaging or opening up a branch, if you will, international branch campuses, one of the topics we'll discuss, is the extent to which it is easy or hard to operate in a different culture. Do you work with the government? Do you work with the private sector? How do you find your way in a way that benefits your own institution and in a way that benefits the country in which you are seeking to open a part of your institution?
And I think, too, institutions have to do such a process with a standard of respect for the other culture and for their educational traditions. And that can be very difficult to balance. The other thing that's interesting that we'll definitely talk about in the class is that branch campuses are just one example, and it's kind of a main, obvious example, but there are so many different types of partnerships that happen, even down to the department level or between faculty. Sometimes it can be something simple like an office that seems like a small enterprise, but actually can be quite demanding for the campus to sustain.
And I think the use of the word sustainability here is very important, because sometimes programs start and they vanish when the individual who started them vanished. So the question is, how do you build these programs into the fabric of the institution? And when we opened a research branch, not a full branch of the university, in Singapore, we found it took us 2 years to get this done, to get the buy-in of the faculty, without whom the partnership wouldn't work. So I think caution, balance is important in all that we do.
And I think you bring up a good point about sustainability. We're not sure that that's even the measure that we should put to these programs. Obviously we want our own home institution to be sustained over forever, but for these types of programs, is sustainability really the model or the measure that we want to apply to them? Is it okay if they just last for a few years and serve a particular purpose and then fade out? Maybe that's fine. Those are some of the debates that we'll have in the class.